Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi, and today we have our first team report in a long time. It's been a while, and so I've got my first Regulation G Part 2 team report, and I'm joined by Gavin Michaels, the one and only. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here. I'm glad that when I was banned, you stopped doing team reports. That means a lot.
Right, pretty much. I mean, I'm glad that you are one of the old heads who are willing to release their team even after you have a good performance, not trying to hide that for a later tournament. And so, yeah, so
Yeah, no, it's part of the old culture of war stories or whatever. But I think it's more so just like the sheets are open anyways, and if your team did good, everyone's just gonna CT it to hell anyways. So why are you holding on to it?
yeah,
Share it, let everyone like spam it on ladder, and then forget about it later.
right. Well, before we get too far, for those that don't know you, presumably people who started in the last year of Pokemon where you were absent, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. For those of you who don't know, I'm Gavin Michaels. I am the 2013 national champion, back when we still had those. I am the 2023 and final Oceania international champion. I am a three-time regional winner, and have been playing this game for over half my lifetime. I have the distinct honor of being both the second youngest and second oldest person to ever win a national event, which I find funny.
Yeah. Well, I heard you were the oldest until last weekend, right?
Yeah, no, it's less of a cool accomplishment when you realize Wolf is both the youngest and the oldest, but let me have this.
Honestly, I mean, also, I would say probably the third greatest North American player or American player of all time as well, behind Wolf and Ray. So, yeah.
That's some glazing I don't deserve, but I appreciate.
All right. Well, before we get into the actual team, who is the third best player behind Wolf and Ray in North America?
It depends on how you weight events. I think that James Beck has a pretty good argument for it.
Okay, that's fair. I understand that one. All right. Well, now that we've been thoroughly sidetracked, as we scheduled the time to record, and we started recording about 25 minutes after that time because we were just chatting. So, as per usual, let's talk about the team that you used to get top 8 at the European International Championships. So you used this KYOGRE team that is pretty unique, and I'm curious because we'd been talking throughout Regulation G Part 1. You were dead set on Lunala, which of course you won Vancouver Regionals with in 2022. You were a big fan of Lunala. You were trying to convince me to run a team similar to this at the World Championships, and you went, I think, 5-3 or 4-4 at San Antonio Regionals.
Listen, I went 5-3. To be fair, I lost my win and end. I got more destroyed than I ever have in my life. It's fine.
So after San Antonio, you had like 3 weeks before EUIC. What made you change off this team, and what made you choose to run KYOGRE?
Well, the what made me change off the team was pretty obvious. I wanted to give Lunala my best effort. I like just going all in on teams. I have limited time. I work a full-time job. I'm a bit older now. So it's like if I have an idea that I think is cool, I want to fully commit to it. Lunala was saying that Brian Collins did very well at Worlds with it built similar to this, and think, okay, I can iterate on this and make it my own and do some cool stuff here. At San Antonio, I realized that, you know what? This team has to play too many mind games too consistently. And I think it's a fine team, but I think it really doesn't play into any of my strengths. So I said, okay, screw it. We're moving on. After that, I went on a panicked whirlwind of mainly Sableye. I had a Sableye-induced fever dream. I brought Sableye Terapagos to the Global Challenge, which pretty quickly became... I was working on a Sableye KYOGRE team with Crow, Harrison, Sailor. And we realized pretty soon afterwards that Sableye was really funny, but it wasn't actually that good. So I was leaning more towards KYOGRE stuff. And then with that, it's very easy to take San Antonio as an inspiration of a lot of people did well with, I'm going to call it Pengyogre, because I think that's what the cool kids are calling it. And you can probably pull that up somewhere. on there. Yeah, Stefan Mott. There we go. And that was the baseline for the what I was like, okay, let's try. What if I take this and make it so that it has Pokemon I like on it? I've never liked Rillaboom. So I'm like, I'm gonna make this an Iron Hands, that's my guy. I think Serena is Troll, so I made that Amoonguss. And then after a little bit of testing, the Urshifu became Scarf because I really liked having that really fast threat. The Tornadus gained Taunt after that NPA set, and then the team was pretty set from there. But yeah, I was really using that as a starting off point and then kind of modifying it to the tools that I feel much more comfortable with.
Yeah. I remember, I was talking about this on Top Takes, and I said I feel like your team is really like a more refined version of this team, where, like you said, you took some. I mean, Rillaboom. I like Rillaboom. I'm a big fan of Rillaboom, but I do think that the Life Orb Urshifu, it feels like a little janky, right? Like the Serena definitely is not the strongest Pokemon in the world. They fit on this style of team, but you took all those Pokemon and you just used like the good versions, and you put all the good Pokemon on the team, and you really built like what feels like a late meta, like a very refined version of the KYOGRE team to me.
I don't know if it's necessarily refined so much as it's like a very convincing impersonation of a refined team, to be honest with you.
Uh
I
huh.
think that if like I went to this tournament with like I finalized my build like 3 days before the tournament. I cannot in any sense of the word imagine that that is refined,
Hmm.
but I think that by using good Pokemon in a way that like has decent synergy, like I knew going in these Pokemon synergize well together. What you mean? If you give Urshifu Scarf Urshifu multipliers, it's good. Amoonguss and Iron Hands are good on Rain. That's crazy. Um, I had a feeling that things would sort of just like fall in place together. And because no one else is using this team, I don't really have to worry about like my opponents having super like good prep into it. So I can afford to show up a bit underprepared.
Hmm. And then I think you also told me that you had kind of based it a little bit on the team that Abdullah the Sempra had used at the World Championships in 2023 as well.
Yeah, that's right. So what I did from this is like I remember at Worlds that year feeling doing terrible with my rain performance and seeing Abdullah's team and doing so well, and I'm just wondering to myself, why didn't I just run that? This is a team that I know is out there that was playing Rain in a style that I feel way better with. Like, I love Amoonguss Iron Hands. I love doing that stuff. And I was like, why did I convince myself that hyper offense like Tornadus was the way when that doesn't feel right for me? So this was, I think, seeing this was a reminder to myself of use Pokemon that you are good with, that like the game plans make sense to your head, and just like who cares if it's like the strongest thing. You're trying to build the best team for you.
Hmm. Yeah. So talk me through the team itself, and why you trained the Pokemon the way that you did.
I've never been good at EVs. All of the EVs are haphazard, random number generated, and just because like, oh, this hits a stat jump. I couldn't tell you what half the things did. That Urshifu's defense, that lives sort of ruined body press from Zamazenta. Why? That doesn't come out anymore now that it's Scarf, but it did when it was a different item, and I was too lazy to change it. So it's that forever. I don't care about EVs. I never have. If someone will give me a better EV spread, I'll use it. The Torrent's the only mildly interesting one. That outruns Adamant Urshifu and takes a Searching Strikes in Rain with no boosting item, which was pretty relevant when I wanted to go with Torn. Um, Fun fact about this team. The way that it ended up being played, Tornadus was actually the sixth Pokemon, which is exactly why it was the first Pokemon that you saw in Team Preview. I remember when I was sitting down versus Pengy Stefan in round 8, and he was like, I hate this mirror. You just lead Tornogre and help you in the speed tie. And I'm like, you lead Tornogre? I I don't know. I think that like Tornadus is mostly there to force a certain response from your opponents than it is to actually like click it. It's a button you want to click some amount of the time, not 100% button. You know,
Hmm.
Tornadus like brings the Raging Bolt out, and then you abuse that. You don't lead Tornadus into a Raging Bolt. What are you, a psychopath? Come on.
Yeah. And so I guess tell me about, how you're talking about how Tornadus is, people think that it's a core part of your game plans. It seems like it's a secondary piece. Talk to me about how someone who wants to pick up this team would learn to play this team. What do your game plans look like?
The main thing is that it is like I think that most restricted in this format outside of Miraidon kind of do best from being in back and coming into a spot where they're more, or Ice Rider too, I guess, where they're more advantageous and then can clean up. The thing with Kyogre is, unless like you can use it for entry damage, but that's not really where it excels. Kyogre excels from the end games where it's like, oh crap, it's next to the Amoonguss, they're clicking Rage Spout or Water Spout, or it's Horn Ogre back and you tail one Water Spout and you can just like wipe the board. So the vast majority of the time, would keep Kyogre in back. The only time I would ever lead Kyogre was when I was either going for a super offensive or Shifu Kyogre lead, or I was against an Ice Rider. And in that particular matchup, the initial fragging of the Kyogre is really important. But what you do is you kind of keep the weapon in back. Uh, and you tend to lead with the Pokemon where it's like you can kind of like be flexible and set up whatever end game like best comes. So I think my most common lead was Iron Hands Chenpao, right? Because you just end up with a lot of flexibility of the fake out pressure, which you can then switch out on if need be. You're threatening just crazy damage with the Chenpao. And also, like, it's difficult to trade favorably into Chenpao, right?
Hmm.
Like you end up very often in a spot where you're slightly up, or you do enough damage to them that then the Shifu can come in and clean up, or the Kyogre can. Uh, I'd say that the main way to how I thought about playing this team is that you tend to play 80% of the game in team preview. And that's just like having the really well thought out game plan as to what are you actually trying to break on your opponents and what is your edge? What are you trying to like win with? And I think that when you're able to be like really thoughtful about it, this team can perform exceptionally well. I think it's part of why I performed much better on day 2 when I had a lot of time to prepare. Before before my top 8 match, I hadn't dropped a game because it's just like you see the open team sheet, you have time to prep.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so I think it's just like getting really comfortable at like formulating the game plans uh with the team and just realizing like what you need to be what, which is like probably not a helpful way to phrase it, but it's the truth of the matter, right? It's like
Hmm.
you kind of got to be very flexible with your game plans because yeah, that's how this team wins games. Like you have like if there's a puzzle to figure out how to beat your opponent, figure out what it is.
So, and you said that you finalized this team, 3 days before the tournament. Did you
Yeah.
have like structured game plans going into the tournament, into common matchups?
I had a game plan into Miraidon, which I then realized later I could have made better. So like the answer is yeah, but they were all kind of like half-ass and like not very good. There was a lot of times, especially during day 1, where I would read something and realize, wow, that was terrible. Let's like just change that and do something entirely different. And I was fortunate, right? Like I either like in day 1, I didn't get unlucky, and there was one game in particular I got pretty lucky in.
Hmm.
And that let me get to like a 7-1 record despite like feeling like pretty like out of practice. But I don't know. I think that oh, this is my hot take. I think that common game plans for common matchups are a total trap because the vast majority of the time, people are going to be running something slightly different. It's not going to be just an off-the-shelf cookie cutter type thing, unless it's like I think that Arabiga is the only thing that like you can justify like being prepped out into, and even then, like slight changes to it change the entire matchup. I
Mhm.
remember like having a really well thought out Arabiga plan, and then people started changing what type the Urshifu was, and then it just shattered. And it's like the problem is with really labbed out game plans is that they can like fall flat really quickly. I find it better to just like have a team with a ton of tools and then like pick it up from there.
Gotcha. So in that case, what are you like looking for, in team preview when you get your team sheet? What are you trying to pick out, identify, and how do you like kind of formulate game plans with this team?
Sure. What I'm trying to do is like anticipate what I think the most common lead is, and just try to. I found that playing the lead very aggressively worked out well for me. So that is, I say in TPView, okay, what do I think they're going to lead? If I lead this, what is their response likely to be? And then just try to like hard punish it because this team with a little bit of momentum does really well. So what I'm looking for is a situation of how do I get either my Kyogre or my Urshifu into a spot where it is an unstoppable threat? Um, and the answer to that can be just lead it. It already is. The answer to that could be a Tornadus in back to support the Kyogre with a Water Spout. It could be an Amoonguss next to the Kyogre. It could be a Rain is up, the Urshifu is next to the Chenpao, or there's like fake out support. It could be, okay, this cleans up, but I need to get rid of a Raging Bolt first. How do I go ahead and do that? Okay, let's stack the Raging Bolt answers, and then if there's not a Raging Bolt, pivot them out, and then be willing to throw them back in when it's back in there. It's just, yeah, and I think like just trying to set up those end games like from the beginning.
Hmm. Makes sense. Were there any matchups that you felt like were really favorable for this team or really like unfavorable for this team?
I thought the Turtle Terapagos matchup was pretty good. Um, I have two fighting types and a Chenpao, and like Clear Smog on Amoonguss.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even intentional. It was just like this matchup's easy.
Yeah, you
I
got
feel
taunt
bad.
on
I
your
played.
tornadoes too. They really can never set up on you.
Yeah, and they can try. Like I played Julio Tarlau, and like he was doing what he could, where it's just like trying to like set up aggressively, and I would just like cover it, and it's just like, oh yeah, and it's dead. And it's like you kind of don't have a matchup there. Um, I think that with Kyogre teams, there's always a question of how the hell do you beat Miraidon, and I think the answer always needs to be aggressively. Like you're never gonna have a stable matchup versus Miraidon when your restricted is so poo poo butt into it, right? So
Mhm.
you got to be willing to lead something that gives you a ton of aggressive options with cleanup in the back. So what I found is best is a Chenpao Iron Hands lead with Amoonguss and one of the waters in back, either Urshifu or Kyogre. Um, with sort of Ruin out, Iron Hands can one hit KO Miraidon with low kick if it doesn't Terra, and with Wild Charge if it does Terra. That is like the crux of like the entire matchup there.
Mhm.
It's not favorable, but it's enough of a tool that like you can at least make it annoying if you get it right.
Makes sense. All right. So just to summarize, the EV spreads are all vibes, and the matchups are
Yeah.
also kind of all vibes. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So with that,
Can I, Audie? I think I should give the people an important context here.
yeah, yeah.
After Saturday, the Pokemon players went out to a bar, as they do, right? They want to feel like relive the days they didn't get in high school or whatever. I won $300 playing rock paper scissors.
Okay.
I just went up to people and said, "I'm going to beat you in rock paper scissors. Do you want to put $100 on it?" And everyone said yes, and I would win. Why? Vibes.
Okay. That's interesting because, I was talking to Marcus on Tub Takes. I think this made it into the actual podcast this week. And he said that you were doing that and you told him the secret to always winning in rock, paper, scissors, but he was too drunk to actually remember it after that night. But he also started doing it and also won all of his RPSs after that. And so I'm really curious what the secret was.
Okay, do you want to know the actual secret?
What's the secret? You got to spill the beans.
When you challenge someone and you're like really belligerent and like something they don't, they feel like you're calling them dumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the dumb option in rock, paper, scissors?
Is it rock?
It's rock.
Uh-huh.
So when you're challenging someone and you're basically saying like, I know something you don't, I'm smarter, whatever. You're not saying exactly that because you're not mean, but that's the mindset you're getting in. They don't want to throw rock because they don't want to feel dumb.
Okay.
So you can just throw scissors and they never throw rock.
All right. So in did you just always throw scissors? Is that what you did?
I threw rock or shoot, what'd I do? I threw rocker sometimes, I think, but yeah, I was the scissors main for sure.
All right. Good to know. Next time you challenge me, know what to do.
But yeah, like you learn a little bit of tendency from just laddering, and it's like then you go for a pretty aggressive punish, and you know what you're setting up better than your opponent, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, for example, against Shadow Rider, one of the reasons that KYOGRE can tend to struggle into Shadow Rider is if they match speeds, the Shadow Rider is just always beating you. That's what the Choice Scarf Runner Shifu is really nice about, because that lets you kind of go one tick faster, right? Okay, if we match Tailwind and you're faster, then I can bring in Urshifu, and if you ever don't have something covering in your Shadow Rider, if I'm able to get Urshifu in, I can kill it, and I would just win, because the Shadow Riders teams aren't able to A, survive their Shadow Rider being blown up, or B, survive losing all their resources from switching out Shadow Rider and then losing that, and then it's like, it's still not a good spot,
Yep.
And I think it's just like, I was very consciously aware of what are the situations where if I get to it, I win, the checkmate positions, right? And I think my opponents weren't as conscious of it, or if they were, they weren't as playing to it too aggressively. So I was just always trying to time, like, when can I go for the checkmate position? Sometimes it's safe. Sometimes I'm trying to force it a little bit because I think they're not expecting it. And then that's how I was able to win a lot of games, by just getting into it. And then the opponent sees the board and realizes, oh, I lose.
Right. And I do think that is, I call that like a macro level game planning, right? Like knowing what your win condition is and finding a way to position yourself to that. And I think especially in restricted formats where, you can go down, 3 Pokemon to 1, but the 1 is your restricted and it's in the right position, you'll win the game. And that's kind of always been the most important skill in these type of formats. And you've been playing so long that I think you've really developed that skill over time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't just be like trying to win consistent damage trades when, like, I don't know, the thing that comes in back you can just win is like 2v4s are so easy to set up in this format. Like with this team and also just with a ton of different teams, that it's like taking a KO is a trap, and I think that's something that a lot of newer players fall into.
Right. It's definitely, especially I think with a KYOGRE team or with a weather focused team, it's so much of these positional wars. He's getting your weather setter in the right position. Is so important.
Yeah, I mean that's something too that like I've been really good at for as long as I've been playing is just managing the timeout resources, right? I've been pretty good at like making sure like very conscious of how many turns of rain I have left, and it's like saying like, okay, if I only have 2 turns of rain left or 3 turns of rain left, then I play differently. It's just knowing like, do I have enough time to execute? And if not, okay, scatter, stall, just click random buttons and get yourself in a position where you can set it up later and then win.
Yeah. So with that, I do want to hear about your tournament run. The first thing I was going to ask, I was just scrolling through real quick. I noticed that you did not face a Koraidon team, I was going to be really curious about if you had to play a Wolf, how you felt about that matchup, because that really is the classic weather war of Kyogre versus Koraidon, as we've been experiencing since Generation 3, right?
I felt like it had to be favorable for me based off
Uh-huh.
the back of the Rain Dance Tornadus. But what I realized pretty quickly, like when thinking about it, was you can kind of fall into a trap of it if you just try to go with the offensive Pokemon right away. Um, I realized that the better thing to do is to try to like slow play it, lead with the bulky Pokemon, and namely lean pretty heavily on Amoonguss. And just realize like if you're able to get your Amoonguss supported in rain, there's not a lot that Wolf can do around it. And it's like they have to get the Incin in, but then the Incin is dealing with a lot of water moves. You can time your Tornado switch in order to make sure that you have rain up when you need it. It's like I think that it's not quite as simple as Rain Dance Go Burr, but the Rain Dance is really helpful for getting a slow methodological win.
Gotcha.
I think it's favored. Yeah.
hmm So yeah, so let's talk about your tournament run. So you, like you said, you went 7-0 in day one, 7-1 overall, and then oh man, that's rough. You went X1 and you lost to the same player in Top Cut. Oh god. So tell me about your tournament experience and a few highlight matches from your run.
Sure. What's crazy is outside of Yosuke, the hardest match I had of the tournament was round 2 versus Shane Wellen.
Okay.
This was just like I really wasn't familiar with how to approach this matchup, and I kind of just led badly. I didn't get my Kyogre in at the right time. It just ended up with a lot of like not having enough resources. In game 2, I should have lost. I ended up in a spot where it was my Urshifu was Terra and Rain. I had a 1 HP Chenpao, right? And he had his full HP Urshifu next to his somewhat HP Amoonguss. And it's like very simple of your Rage Powder, and my Urshifu was low HP, sorry. Your Rage Powder, you kill my Urshifu, you win.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't Rage Powder, and because he had close combated earlier, the Terra Water, Searching Strikes, and Rain killed the Urshifu. He went oopsies, and I was able to win game 3 with a better adjusted game plan. But like it made me realize that when my game plans are on point, the matchups get really, really easy. But if the game plans are just slightly off, like I can very easily lose to a normal team or someone who ended up going 4-4. Like this isn't like these are matches where if you're getting top 8, you would expect to be like winning quite easily. So I think that was a pretty big wake up call for me.
Well, you say that, but this team does look fairly similar to the team that you lost to in top 8.
Do you want to know what the key difference there actually is?
What's the difference?
It's the Ogre Pawn.
Okay, so the one Pokemon difference is the difference.
Yeah, what Shane's team is not able to do that Yosuke's team is deal with the KYOGRE next to the Amoonguss.
Mm-hmm.
I can't reliably just say KYOGRE goes burr, you can't hit me. But I realize versus Shane, I totally can. And that's just like a bit of a checkmate position for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Raging Bolt isn't breaking through. Yes, the Amoonguss can get a Spore off, but then I can commit Terra, and it's like, it's not very pleasant for him. And it's just like, I just need a little bit of damage onto Amoonguss, and then that position is a lock.
Right.
The Yosuke, I wasn't able to play to that. And I think like that's what I really struggled with was against Yosuke, I didn't have any checkmate positions.
Right. All right. So I mean, we'll get a chance to talk about that matchup too, but any other matches you want to talk about before that?
Yeah, I played an Eternatus. That was just kind of funny. It was Cosmic Power, so Clear Smog Amoonguss was kind of goated.
Mm-hmm.
This match took forever.
I bet.
Yeah, I know you have thoughts.
No, like, okay. My thought is that low key, these Cosmic Power Eternatus teams have been doing like fairly well. Like, I don't know if anyone good has decided that Eternatus is the Pokemon they want to use. Like, I feel like there aren't like real building groups building this. But I saw Ricardo Apamea make day 2 at Birmingham with it. I saw Tim Harden, I think, make day two at San Antonio with it. Like for low representation, it's definitely overachieving. I think that it might like be kind of real.
I kind of see that too. What I'll say is, I think I had Clear Smog Amoongus was kind of the nuts in this team.
Yeah, and you know what? I say that, but Dozo has been doing so well recently. Dozo won the GC, like it's kind of popping up everywhere, and so I think that it had its moment, and it's probably not as real when everyone is using Dozo.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's probably a low scenario where it's half decent, but you gotta wait for like the Dozo hate to die down. You know, like Dozo comes in waves.
Yeah, but what was your reaction?
Metaphorically, Dozo does not literally come in waves.
It comes in wave crashes. So what was your reaction seeing to in Eternatus at 3-0?
The fuck? No, that's mainly it. Is a good guy, solid player. Yeah, that was just the only notable thing of like that was kind of funny. Then I played just two Zamazentes. My match versus Pengi was kind of funny though.
All right.
I had no idea what I was doing game one. I got destroyed. My game plan didn't make any sense. It was bad. I lost. Game two, I went for what I thought was a good game plan. And then I got hit with, it's Jolly Serena. The Serena outran and one hit KO'd my KYOGRE. And I was like, well. And then I got in a spot where I needed to crit Opals or have him miss an Opals to win, and I crit the Opals. And then game three, I figured out that actually the lead to go for here is, because Stefan always goes Torn Ogre into me, is I can go Torn or Shifu, force his Tornadus to Tailwind, and instead of Surging Striking the Tornadus, get the damage on KYOGRE, so then I can Surging Strikes and get the kill next turn. So I set myself up for 2 KOs instead of just like one into the Tornadus and just like trading that. And it ends up in a pretty favorable spot for me.
Yeah, I guess you figured it out. Yeah, so I'm definitely interested in how, because again, you played Yanagi twice. How did your first matchup go?
I got so owned. The game one we played was somewhat playable for me. I realized if I had just like managed my resources more, because he ended up not bringing the Flutter main when I led KYOGRE or Shifu, and I kind of played lazy. I let my Urshifu die, got swept by the Rock Pawn. And that was like one where it's like, okay, that was winnable. Game two, he led Rock Pawn Flutter main, and I didn't take a KO because I just got put in the spin cycle, man. Because Icy Wind plus an Ogre Pawn move threatens the KO on like my entire team. Nothing is safe. Nothing is actually breaking through. Nothing is one hit KOing the Rock Pawn. Nothing is one hit KOing the Flutter main. It was horrifying. And then I immediately spent afterwards like, oh my god, how do I ever in a million years break past this lead? And my plan for playing in top 8 was, okay, he'll lead the Rock Pawn Flutter main again. He didn't. But if he did, I was going to lead Iron Hands, and KYOGRE, and say, I think that you are going to double protect this turn. Or sorry, I was going to lead Amoongus KYOGRE, say you're going to double protect this turn, then switch Amoongus out into Iron Hands. The reason why he double protect is because I am threatening the Spore on Fluttermane protect, I am threatening the Terra on my KYOGRE, and it doesn't immediately appear that he loses too much by double protecting. But if he does and I go into Iron Hands, then the fake out and I can snowball and win. So I was trying to basically go for kind of gimmicks, right? I'm just like, hey, did you see this coming? Ended up not opting for that. I'm not entirely sure why he didn't, because I think that it was still scarier to play against than what he ended up going with, and that was still very hard.
Right. And I think that's a reasonable approach. I think when you acknowledge that a matchup is negative, you want to turn, you want to increase the variance in the matchup and try to make them make reads, especially in the early game. And yeah, it seems like a very reasonable game plan to line up when you know that one lead is really difficult.
Yeah, exactly. It was the only thing I could think of, so I felt pretty good about that. I never came into fruition, but I'm still happy that I played a top 8 match.
Hmm.
To go in chronological order, the rest of day 2 is pretty similar, actually. I ended up winning my round 9 matchup, largely because of a change I made to Tornadus of running Taunt on it, which I only did in response to playing pretty much this exact team and losing to it in NPA.
Hmm.
Or USPA, one of the two. Whatever. They're the same thing. They're not. They're the same thing. And here what I realized was that if I'm able to I'm basically threatening to sorry. Tornadus threatens the world. He can
Hmm.
never get into a comfortable spot as long as I have Tornadus available because I'm threatening to taunt the Shadow Rider, so it's never able to get set up. It's never able to break past a Moongus, all sorts of bad stuff. I'm threatening to taunt the Mian Shao, so it can't taunt the Amoonguss can spore it to it. So I'm setting us up a spot where he needs to kind of collapse into the Tornadus. And I was able to just like game 1 not lead Tornadus and just say you need to overcommit to it and beat him with Tornadus and back. In game 2, I was able to say, oh, is that the replay?
Is this the matchup? You played 2 Shadow Rider in a row with the team. You played this, and you played
This was a different
Pat.
one, actually. No, this was versus. All right, no, this wasn't quite the one. This
Okay,
one was slightly different because it was like Terra Dark. Yeah.
you played PatCon with a very different looking team. No, you play the same
No, I
team
played
3 weeks in a
3.
row? No, you brought the Terapagos team the team before that, the week before that.
I played Tim Edwards, I think, in USPA.
Okay, USPA. Gotcha. I was gonna say because I thought you played against us, the puppies, and we did bring Shadow Rider against you, but we brought a very different team. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're so good. So I was able to, with that adjustment of using taunt as like, I know it's so important in the matchup, but I know he knows that type of thing, so I don't immediately like lead with it. And then game 2, I just led Tornadus and Moongus, and then just like pretty much cleaned up with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an example of like having a more well formulated game plan led to a fairly effortless win. Next round I played Ryan Haig. He is a SoCal locale, so that was kind of funny. That set is on YouTube, I believe.
Okay.
Game 1, I fake out into a Farigiraf switch. He takes a KO, and I win easily.
Nice.
Because, again, if you look at this team, what is the thing on here that beats KYOGRE next to Amoonguss?
Their own KYOGRE, their own Amoonguss, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Which only works if they're able to keep it at perfect HP. Yeah,
Right.
you can now pull this one up a bit to show that
We'll see.
turn 1, I get so destroyed. I think he literally took a video of it. He was like, ha, that was cool. And took a video of it. And
Oh God.
Yeah,
Oh, that's rough.
any second now.
Oh wait, do we get to see you taking a video of it?
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. By the way,
I tear, right?
yeah.
To avoid a rage bolt that no longer exists. I
Mhm.
fake out, I whiff, I eat the surging strikes, and he takes the
Yeah.
because this is a lot of this, right? And
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day, I still got to do that.
Yeah. You still won the damage trade.
I still want the damage trade. And do you know what I did here? I'm like, huh, you're threatening to KO the Kyogre here. I don't like that. Oh, never mind. I made the hard read that he wasn't going to because he was scared of the Amoonguss. Okay, that's right. And then I just, yeah.
Damn. Yeah, and that's just game, right? You're up 4-2. You got Monted back. I don't. He's got a raging bolt that can't hit the Kyogre.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. I love that.
Right?
He was taunting you with the with taking the replay and he still lost. That's crazy.
He wasn't even taunting me because he didn't show it. He was probably just like, yeah, that was sick, and then lost. Because then I just
Mm-hmm.
it's like what is he ever supposed to do here? You know, it's like, but yeah, this year like my the matchup was just really nutted for me, and I kind of leveraged it well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was still willing to play aggressively even with the good matchup because I was like, I know he's not. By the way, pause real quick.
Okay.
That's the best Amoongus nickname I've ever come up with.
I don't get it.
Morel Victory.
All right, explain for the people who are
Morels
slow.
are a type of mushroom.
Oh, I see. I see. I don't know if I don't know if
Do
I
you
actually
not,
heard it. I've never heard of that before. I'm looking that
do you
up
not
right
eat
now.
your vegetables? You don't know what morels are?
Okay, I don't think I've ever eaten a mushroom that looks like this. I'm sorry. This is not a mushroom that I've eaten.
You probably have.
I might have. I might have. Man, there's a lot of morels that look very weird. Um, no, I did not get that
There's
reference at
so
all.
many morels.
Uh,
Not a mushroom guy.
I
Not a mushroom guy.
So actually, funny story, totally unrelated. I did not eat mushrooms for a long time. I would just reject them no matter what. And then I slowly started eating them as an adult, like in my 20s. I was like, all right, I like fried mushrooms and put them as like a topping on stuff. And like, oh, this is actually really good. And so now I'm into mushrooms, but it took me like 20 years before I actually started eating mushrooms. So I do not have the depth of knowledge about mushrooms yet. Still working
Yeah,
on
you're
it.
missing out.
No, I like them. I like them.
Oh,
But okay, okay, I respect it. You got to put your nicknames on your team sheet so everyone can see them. That's important. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
that way, when someone
Uh,
just copies and pastes your team onto Showdown, they everyone knows that they did that.
exactly. Yeah, that one I thought was funny because that's recorded history.
hmm
Uh,
Big shout outs
and
to Dimitri for uploading all of these matches. By the way, it's huge. I love that we have people uploading all these matches that
oh,
otherwise
yeah.
would never be seen.
Yeah, no, it's a long tradition of recording the side stream matches where it's like you have some of the coolest moments in VGC that come from here.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's an effort to love. Um, yeah, then similar approach versus Matt as with Miguel, Julio. We talked a bit about like the turtle matchup being ridiculous, and then ended up in top 8 versus Yosuke.
Yeah, yeah. And then you mentioned you played Julio. Oh, yeah, it's crazy you played Julio in round 12 and then again in top 16. That must have been brutal for Julio, honestly.
Yeah, no, I felt bad for him. I was kind of I'm like, oh, I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
Like, in that, like, I won 2 games of the 4 really dominantly. One of them, I remember I got a crit that immediately ended the game, but it was still like a game. And then one of them I got a flinch that immediately ended the game, but it was still a game. You know what I mean?
So wait, so did you not face a single Moridon the entire tournament?
I didn't place a single Maridon the entire tournament. And you're wondering how I got top 8 with KYOGRE?
That's wild.
What's funny though is if I won top 8, I would have played Dill, and that was Maridon I had a good matchup into.
Uh-huh. Right.
I think they were talking about it on Tub Takes that I can just go Tailwind Burr and they can't stop it.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. Yeah. And then you'd lose to Tyrant in top 4. But, you know.
No. I don't play Tyrant in top 4. I play Dill.
Oh, okay. Right. Because yeah, okay. That lines up. That sounds right. All right. Tell me about the second matchup with Yosuke. How'd that go? And that, of course, was on stream. I've got it pulled up for the iconic moment at the end of game 2.
Yeah, this is a matchup where I was prepping a couple of things into it, and I realized that none of them were that good, but a lot of them were okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of said a thing of like, I prepped 3 game plans. Said I'm gonna bring one of them each time and figure it out, and just mostly focus the rest of the time on like getting some rest and like being ready for that because that time zone change hits me like a truck.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't sleep that well night before, all of that classic stuff. So I was just like, I just need a break for my brain so I don't like explode. I think I drank 7 coffees before this set. like over the course of the day. Uh, which I think is enough to kill like at least a horse with the caffeine allergy. Like
I
I don't know about a normal horse, but some of them.
I feel like
Um,
I feel like a normal horse can drink more caffeine than a person, but I don't know. I don't really know
I
much about
think
horse
so, but I'm
physiology.
not. What are you here for then?
That's true.
All
That's
right,
true. Certainly not for my Pokemon insight. That's not why I'm here.
yeah, we need an expert on horse physiology for this Ice Rider matchup. Uh, so I knew going in that Chiyu was not going to make an appearance. There wasn't a need to.
Hmm.
But it was really just a matter of playing around the Fluttermane and the threat of Icy Wind. What I sort of envisioned going into this, which isn't what ended up happening, was that I would be Terra grassing my Iron Hands a lot, which I'm grateful I didn't because I didn't realize his Ice Rider was faster than my Iron Hands, which is actually a big reason why he's able to win Game 3.
Hmm.
I think there's a moment Game 2 when you see him like Icy Winding Iron Hands and praying that it hits so that a Glacial Lance can go off. And I was like, oh, my hands is faster. Which turns out we just both didn't know. Sometimes we just like both live in a shared hallucination.
Yeah. Well, alternatively, that's just like fantastic bait, right? That's like playing poker out there. It's like, yeah, you got.
If he did that, like that's really sick. Game 1, it was a lead I didn't expect, but I think I played it very well given the situation. You can see me like sort of debate like, oh, do I rage powder here? Do I like not? Do I try to preserve? I end up going for a plan that makes a lot of sense, and I'm very proud of how in the end game I'm able to see a line that wins way more often than not by locking into Aqua Jet as opposed to Surging Strikes,
Hmm.
and just saying like 2 Aqua Jets will KO the Ogre Pawn, and yeah.
I do remember that, and I do remember thinking it was a very smart play. But I don't want to cut off here because it's gonna take me forever to find it. So I'm gonna let you keep talking.
Game 2, we were both so dumb on turn 1, and I think like the audience members can realize that was weird, but I don't think you realize how dumb we both were on turn 1. So turn 1, I say, all right, I'm gonna blow up this Urshifu. I'm gonna throw in all of the resources because guess what? Early, I remembered on day 1 earlier when I gave my Urshifu all of the resources, it OHKO'd his Urshifu. And if I do that, I blow it up, I win the game.
Okay.
Now, mind you, I told the story earlier, it had taken a close combat drop.
Yep.
In this moment, I forgot.
Hmm.
That flipped my brain. So I think you can see here the shock and confusion as a thing that never KOs does not KO.
All right. Your facial
You can see it in
reactions.
all-
Let's see it. That's a pretty great reaction. Yeah.
You can just go, what? Really? Ah, crap. I'm like, well, this game's done. And then it wasn't. Then it was still like a bit of a game because I was looking at the high scores like, really? What? Glacial Lance?
Mhm.
That one? And then I'm like, okay, I think I can like sort of make this a game, and I do, but it ends up coming down to the sort of iconic end game, right?
Yeah. All right. Let me pull it
I
up.
wouldn't say that. I don't think that's like too crazy to call it iconic.
No, not at
So
all.
here, this is an interesting turn, right? Of I go for the protect and saying like in my head, like I think that it's reasonable for him to target down the Urshifu here. But does that? And at this point, I'm like, okay, nice. And then the rain stopped, and I'm like, okay, at this point, it does not enter my mind that he can not attack the Kyogre.
Right. Because he has if you double protect, he has a 67% chance. I guess less than that because he gets hit a power whip as well, right?
Nah, Cudgel kills.
Okay. So he has 67% chance, and you have a 33% chance if you double protect, right?
Yeah. So I immediately lock that in. I don't even think twice about it, right? And then here, when the double protect fails and I see him popping off, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he did the finger wag. I see you back all the way up. You shocked. Oh, it was great. It's a great moment.
Like, okay. I mean, that's just nice. I saw people saying afterwards, like, oh, he shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I was always going for the double protect there. That's a super valid read. I think you were doing the math and showing that.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to go through this, sir?
Yeah, I can go through this. Okay, so I'm bringing this. Okay, I'm bringing this up because Rafa was posting in Tub talking about sorry Rafa. Rafa was like, okay, but if you always assume that the Gavin is doing this, let me pull it up. Okay, he said, I was thinking about the end game. If you're Yanagi and you accept that Gavin will almost assuredly double protect, but you're too weedy to pass up a 67% win con. You could increase those odds further to 83% by flipping a coin and deciding who to target. And then we had he and a few other people were having a discussion about that because ESM was like, well, if it's 50-50 that Gavin attacks or doesn't attack, then the odds change, right? And I had to explain to everyone, this is just game theory. This is basic game theory. And by the way, if you want, Gavin and I were talking about this before we started recording. If you want like a lecture on intro to game theory with just Pokemon explanations, let me know. That is a video that I am like very tempted to like actually script out because at its very core, Pokemon is just applied game theory. And this is not the first team report that Gavin has recorded on this channel where we just say this exact same shit. We do this every single time because we're both huge nerds. Anyways, this is the and apparently, go ahead.
Do you remember Hayden's like math treatise on like how often like the sucker punch versus protect endgame?
I do remember that. Yeah, that was incredible.
It was really good. She did a good job with it. But like, I'm like, yeah, no, I feel like, in my opinion, anyone who like understands what's written there and like can explain the math behind it, like that should be the equivalent of like a leak code question on an interview.
Right. Well, so to give people the very, very basics, game theory is a type of game where both players make their decision simultaneously and independently, right? So
game theory is a broader concept.
Well, yeah, game theory in general is where you have to make your decisions independently and simultaneously, right? So you don't have information about what your opponent is going to do, which is in pretty stark contrast to games like chess, games like poker, where everyone makes their decisions one at a time, right? Every board game, basically. That's why Pokemon is so unique and it is the most direct corollary to game theory. And so if you look at this, right, we have Gavin's 2 decisions here, and we have Yanagi's 2 decisions on this side, and we have Yanagi's win percentage given the combination of 2 decisions. If you know about the prisoner's dilemma, you've probably seen a layout like this before, but the difference is this is a zero-sum game. One player wins, one player loses, which is not the same as the prisoner's dilemma at all. And so what you get is you get something called a Nash equilibrium. You also get that in the prisoner's dilemma, but you only get one outcome in the prisoner's dilemma. Both players should always make the same decision. In most game theory questions, you do not get a Nash equilibrium where one player makes one decision every single time. Both players make one decision every single time. Instead, you get a situation where both players should make a decision with a certain probability. And so I plugged this into a Nash equilibrium calculator. And essentially, the outcome is that Gavin should attack with KYOGRE about 25% of the time and protect 75% of the time. And Yanagi should attack the KYOGRE 75% of the time to both like maximize their win conditions, and anything else is slightly inefficient, especially if your opponent knows that you're making an inefficient play. Again, now,
I'll add to this though. There's the idea of exploits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of saying like, this is the game theory optimal thing, but is my opponent more or less likely to deviate given what I know about them? Given the situation we were in, I think it's very correct, frankly, to say I am going for double protect more than 75% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Both because A, if I am aware of this situation, then I will click it 75% of the time. And B, if I'm not aware and not a thinking player, then, which I was in this instance, then I will just monkey click the double protect.
Mm-hmm.
The sheer existence of me being a monkey means that you're supposed to attack the Urshifu much more than that 25% implies.
And I think that against most players that would be the case. against a data scientist, I would expect that not to be the case normally, but
I would sleep deprived.
but yeah, I don't know. This is again, I don't want to go into the details about how you calculate a Nash equilibrium and like what exactly it is, but like yeah, well, I was just explaining to Rafa and to people in Tub that like yeah, like this is actually like a question that you learn if you take a like a 300 level economics class, and it is just like so much of Pokemon actually can be thought of through this lens. So yeah, this is what this actual come down to. It's like no, neither player really threw. Really, it is a probabilistic situation where both players should be like flipping a weighted coin to make their decisions. I don't know.
Exactly.
That's my little tangent. I don't know if you had more to say about this matchup. It was whole game 3.
Yeah, game 3 is awesome. I lose, but I think that it is a pretty fun game overall. There's lots of like back and forth and chaos of it. What ended up being the decisive turn was I think turn 3 when he Ivy cudgels my Amoonguss as I switch out into Iron Hands and there's a crit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the turn before this.
This is turn
Or no,
one.
it's not.
This
Never
turn.
mind.
Yeah,
we get turned.
Was there a crit in game 2 as well? I feel like I remember you having a couple crits against you.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
That crit in game 2 mattered a hell of a lot more than any of the crits this game, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like there's a little bit of psychic damage involved in getting crit. You know what I mean? Like even if it doesn't matter, like you still like hurt a little bit inside.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, top 8 of internets. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Here's where you can see I'm surprised in that like the Ice Rider is faster.
Right. I did see that.
And yeah, that ends up setting up a lot of things because I was really thinking about Terra grassing my Kyogre there and just being like, oh god damn, good thing I didn't. This spot is a little interesting because it's a thing of like, well, how likely is he to like break Sash? I end up kind of deciding here like I'm either getting the Sash to break or he's KOing my sleeping Kyogre, so he's not getting max value out of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which like either way is like relatively okay, especially when you consider that like I'm gonna be able to get the Kyogre and Rain.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he ends up like committing the Surging, I think, to just guarantee the kill on the Iron Hands, but obviously doesn't pay off in this case. And this is the scenario I think is really interesting here, because what I'm threatening here, right, is boring the Urshifu, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's Terra, it's the big threat. And I'm thinking, well, in order to cover for that, you're going to have to follow me.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't and is able to risk it for the biscuit. It turns out that because the Ivy Cudgel crit, it was good I switched out anyways, because otherwise the Cudgel would have killed Amoonguss, but that's a little bit results-oriented. Or actually a lot of results-oriented.
Right.
And the crit, yeah, kind of sucks the wind out of my sails. Here, I think I had a... this is a turn I went over in my head a lot about it, if I'm supposed to target the left or the right slot. I end up coming to the decision that it doesn't end up actually mattering that much. Weirdly enough, I kind of end up in the same endgame regardless. Like, regardless of which slot ends up going into the Amoonguss, I still end up having to, I don't know, like what I'm trying to say is if I Surging Strikes the Urshifu here, I don't actually end up in a better situation.
Right. You still have to get through the Amoonguss, right?
Yeah, and the reason for that is that I don't think that Fake Out does enough damage here for the Fake Out plus Surging Strikes to KO there.
Mm-hmm.
Here I could have made a bit of a read potentially, and gone into Amoonguss, but then I realized, okay, no matter what, if even if I'm able to get out of it with taking a KO and I survive, it's just I end up in a spot where he can then just take like 2 KOs like somewhat freely, I felt, and just doesn't end up like improving the situation. And I end up like really playing to this endgame largely because I didn't know my Calyx too well, to be honest with you. In my head, I really thought that Pollen Puff could either 2-hit KO or Among Us could live to Ivy Cudgels.
Hmm.
It doesn't. Neither of those things are a reality that we live in. But in my head, I thought both of those sounded plausible, so I wasn't like too stressed here. And
Right.
then I think like when you see the pollen puff do so little that year, I'm like, crap.
Right. Yeah.
And the Ivy Cudgel, the crit didn't end up mattering, but yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, that it's hard to know all those internal calcs as well, right? So, and then you also had power whip miss odds as well. So, and then yeah, like you said, you also got crit on the Ivy Cudgel into Iron Hands, which I don't know if that made a difference on the power whip
It
roll.
didn't make a difference.
It
No,
didn't. Okay. No.
no, but it like I don't know. I think this is still a really fun game to go over and look at the positioning of it,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of just like things where it's like, oh, there are reads that you think would matter that you can make that end up not actually mattering, and I think that that's so interesting. Of like when a line is so strong that it kind of like everything funnels back into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the nature of like redirection, right? Is that eventually you have to get through the redirector. It doesn't really matter um, if you sometimes it doesn't matter if you target the other slot when it's still coming in because you still have to commit 2 attacks into it. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I thought it was a very fun game. I
Mhm.
think if I was able to get past this, I think I got a good shot at it. But this was the hardest challenge for me in the tournament, and I didn't get past it.
Right. And I mean, I think a lot of times, at least the way I see it, when you faced a really really difficult matchup and you made it a really really close set where you honestly probably got a little unlucky on in a couple different ways to not end up walking with it. But yeah, when you're facing a tough matchup and especially in top cut, the best you can kind of hope for is to make it close, right? To give yourself a
Yeah,
shot.
exactly.
Uh,
And that's what I'm happy with ultimately. It's like my first like big event back. So I'm just like happy that I was able to put on a good show and not just like do what happened at the last round of day one where I just got totally steamrolled.
Absolutely. I mean, you had a really really strong. Again, you only lost to one player in the entire tournament, so a really really incredible run about the tournament. And hold up, here's the rental code. I've opened up too many tabs at this point. So if you want to try this team out, and I definitely recommend that you do, I have put the rental code on screen right now. Of course, the paste it will be in the description down below. Definitely recommend that you try this team. It is, I think, maybe the strongest KYOGRE team out there right now. And yeah, thank you, Gavin, for coming on the channel and coming back on the channel. It's been a little bit, but I'm really every time we do a team report, I have way too much fun chatting with you. So yeah, I really appreciate it, and congratulations again on your run at the European Championships. Did you have any final words or shout outs that you wanted to give?
Anytime. No, thank you so much. I'd like to give a shout out to people who helped me build and keep saying during the game. So that's Dalway, Zach, Anosh, and Harrison. My incredible fiance Madhu for all of her support. And as always, Angel Miranda, may his memory be a blessing.
Yeah,
I think that's about it.
yeah. Well, thanks again for coming on, and thank you all for watching. And yeah, with that, until next time, I will see you all later.